Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about a relatively new book that has just been published earlier this month, which is The Tarot Architect by Milo DuQuette. And I think this book is quite eagerly awaited, not only by the tarot community, but by readers who are interested in Hermetic Kabbalah, and I particularly have been looking forward to getting this book. And the subtitle of the book is How to Become the Master Builder of Your Spiritual Temple. So this book is one of many books by Milo DuQuette, and I think this book also fits in with the book that I reviewed last time, which was also about Hermetic Kabbalah of the Golden Dawn. What is different about this book is that it is actually about the cube of space, which is not mentioned in many books about Hermetic Kabbalah, and especially in connection with tarot. So when I found out that this book was going to be particularly about the cube of space, I really became very interested in getting this book. So for people who are not familiar with the cube of space, it's actually based on the Sefer Yetzirah, and this book is a very old philosophical book, one of the first philosophical books written in Hebrew. This book is much older than the Zohar, for example, and this book talks about the connection of the Hebrew letters with the four directions and with the dimensions of space, like height and width. So this was the first book to talk about that. So this is what the cube of space with the Hermetic Kabbalah and the Golden Dawn, this is what the cube of space is based on. And the Sefer Yetzirah is referred to in this book, and it's also in the bibliography. So for people who are interested in getting that book, I will put some details below the video. So to talk about this book, it's about 300 pages. It's got a lot in here. I think it's one of the best books that Milo DuQuette has written. That's really saying something. I have reviewed some of his other books on my channel before as well, but I really like the way this is put together. So it's also a great primer on Hermetic Kabbalah. So even for people who are just learning about Hermetic Kabbalah and they want to learn all about the structure of that and all the different concepts and ideas, all of that is in here. And like, for example, you have your usual glyph here with all the different paths, the correspondences of the tarot trump cards, major arcana. And next to this diagram, the glyph of the Tree of Life, that is where Milo DuQuette particularly starts to talk about the Sefer Yetzirah. So he talks about the structure of the Tree of Life to begin with, and also the starting with the Tetragrammaton as well, because that's for each of the four worlds. And there's a lot of different meditations in here and exercises. And I think it's a great way to learn, not only in a systematic way, but to apply these things, particularly if you're interested with the meditations, because Milo is particularly about understanding things, but understanding things psychologically as well, so that it's thoroughly understood. And if I just talk about what's in the book, the structure of the book, it's in two books, like part 1 and part 2. So book 1 is laying the foundation. So this is where he starts off by talking about the Tetragrammaton, the Tree of Life, and the Sefer Yetzirah, and then goes into chapter 4, which is the cube of space. So if I just show you some of the things that are in here, like here's where you've got the 7 double letters, which are the 7 planetary trumps or majors. He's got the different major arcana cards here associated with the directions and the Hebrew letters, all of that. So you have the 4 directions plus above and below, and the associated tarot cards with that. There's rituals in here too, as well as meditations and exercises. So the idea of the directions and above and below is all to do with understanding the cube of space. He even talks about the flattened cube of space, what that looks like as well. So you can make your own model of that. So he's got all of the planetary symbols. In book 2, he actually calls it creating your own deck, which you can, if you want, if you wish, you can do that. For me, I personally am not going to do that, but for other people, yes, they very much may want to do that. This is what the cube of space ultimately looks like. So you have the Hebrew letters there, and you have the major arcana trump cards and the directions of above and below, and the 4 main directions, compass directions. So it's all of the correspondences that are here. I just think it's great that there is now a recently published book that is explaining all about the cube of space, because a cube of space is just not mentioned in many Kabbalah books. I don't know why. I think maybe some authors think it's a bit too advanced, possibly, but the way that Milo explains things, I think this is one of the best books for explaining and showing how you can actually create that. I mean, what this is also about, whether you make a model of this or not in your own way, this is to make a metaphorical spiritual temple, your own spiritual space. And it's all in connection with Hermetic Kabbalah of the Golden Dawn. Now, when you get to the part 2, if you do want to make your own actually make your own cards, if you want to create your own deck, or you can also, there is a picture for each of the cards. Now, these are the cards from Milo DuQuette's own deck. So, for example, this is the universe card. There's all these black and white pictures in here of each of the cards, of all 78 cards. And it has all of the, on the opposite page, there's all of these correspondences. So it's all there. And also for people who want to colour these pictures. You could colour these pictures instead of, or as well as, creating your own cards. But there are some people who are colouring the pictures, at least doing that first before they decide whether they're going to make or create their own deck. And the actual copy of the deck can still be obtained. Lon Milo's deck, at the very back of the book, he says where you can still buy a copy of his deck, which is the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic. It says the address here in Omaha. If you want to, the actual postal and street address, there is a website called magicalomaha.com. If you would like to get Lon Milo's deck to go with this book, so you can get that, you can still get that, because it was originally published by Weiser, I think, and Weiser has published this book recently. So the other great thing about this book is the correspondences. So, for example, let's just have a look. If you're looking at the universe card here, which I showed before, you have got the Hebrew letter and the symbols. You have actually got the correspondence for the cube of space, so you know where that is on the cube of space. It also has the colour scales, if you're interested in the colour scales, and you would be interested in the colour scales, especially if you're going to colour these pictures. It also has the path number for the tree of life and the relating intelligence of the 32 intelligences for the paths. And it's also got the planetary, on the card itself, it's got the planetary and or element for the cards as well. So this goes all the way through the cards, all the way. And he talks about doing this in a particular order. There's a reason for that, because it's all to do with the foundations of the cube of space. So it's all done in a particular order. That's why the book's set out in this order. So in book 2, this is all about creating your own deck, or colouring the deck, colouring the pictures, and or getting the deck by Lon Milo as well. So he starts with the trumps in the particular order in relation to the Hebrew letters. Then he talks about the aces separately, the 4 aces and the 4 princesses. So this is Thoth based, of course. He says that the type of deck to use with this is either his deck or the Thoth Tarot. So the court cards, of course, this is going to be completely Thoth based. So the princesses are the equivalent to pages in the Waite-Smith. So the aces and princesses are grouped separately. Then he talks about the other court cards and the astrological associations with the court cards. Then he talks about the knights, the queens, and the princes. These are all separate chapters. Then he talks about the minor arcana, which he's calling the small cards because that is what the Golden Dawn and Crowley always called them, the small cards, instead of the minor arcana. So just to talk about some other things that are in the book too, there is a great correspondence table for all of the trump cards. Really, really great chart. It's really great in here. That's in the appendix at the back. So that's really, really good. And then it's all grouped according to the cubist space as well. So it's all in that order. You're following that order all the way through the book. And there's another appendix here for the Enochian Table of Union for people who are interested in that. So how the cards, the aces and court cards on the Enochian Table of Union, how they are placed in that. You've got a great bibliography at the back. And I'll just I found something else that I want to show you as well. This is the picture of how the cards look, the cube of space, the order of the cards. That's at the front of the book. But at the back of the book, it's actually listed the title of all the cards. So you can actually set this out. You can actually lay them out in the order. That is in chapter 11, called the House of Cards. And this is how that looks. That's how that same picture looks. They're all numbered, all the trumps at the top. That triangular shape is all of the major arcana. And then under here, all of the other cards are grouped underneath. And you'll be able to see the reason why that is, because it's all set out in the earlier pages of the book. For the court cards and the minor arcana, the small cards, you have all of the dates, the associated dates are all here too. To see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about or show. On the minor arcana cards, the numbered cards, there is the title of that as well, which is the Thoth title, and the associated planets and astrology sign. So there's the astrology associated with that. Now, for all of the numbered cards too, you've got all of these correspondences here up the top here. And this is great because he also associates this with the spirits of the Goetia, the angels of the Shehem Peresh, the 72 angels. Of course, the associated Sephirah on the Tree of Life. He's got everything there. Oh, and that's right. And even the Enochian spirits too are also all part of all of these correspondences that are alongside the picture of the card, the drawing of the card. So, yeah, I really do think this is one of the best books that Milo has written in regard to Hermetic Kabbalah, and particularly because this is totally including integrating the cube of space with all of this. He's even talking, there's even a section here where he's talking about the numbered cards or the small cards, talking about what does Enochian magic have to do with the small cards. So, I mean, he's just telling you everything you need to know, everything you want to know. He's got a chart here for the spirits of the Goetia. There's a whole chart here for that, with all of the numbered cards. So I think that's just about everything that I wanted to mention. It really is. I think it really is quite an achievement, really, to get all of this in one book. It's a book about Thoth Tarot. It's a book about Hermetic Kabbalah, all Golden Dawn based, and the cube of space. I mean, in some ways, this is a primer. It's a great primer, like for all of those things. It's all in one book. Plus, types of exercises and meditations and rituals so that people can work with this and understand this, but also explaining things as he goes along. So I think I have mentioned all of the main things that I wanted to show with all of this. I mean, I don't agree with everything in this book, but I agree with most of it, because by saying agreeing, for example, just some of the procedures for the rituals, that I personally would not do, because that's just not my approach. That's just my personal preference, but that is not anything major. That's just an approach to ritual. That's not something major. But, this book is definitely worth getting for all of the things that I've mentioned so far. If you want everything all in one place, for the Hermetic Kabbalah of the Golden Dawn, which also includes the cube of space. There's not many books written about that. I've got a fairly large esoteric library. I've probably only got about 3 books, other than this one, that even make mention of the cube of space. This is probably one of the only ones that goes into this in detail. There was another book written in the early 90s. There hasn't been another one since by a different author. That was the only one that went into the cube of space in great detail. That has been long out of print. It's also mentioned in the bibliography here by Milo. And that is why since then I have been after a book that explains the cube of space, and it's always in relation to Hermetic Kabbalah and Tarot, but this book explains it also thoroughly and encourages you to either make your own cards or to colour the pictures, colour the drawings of the tarot cards. I know that the Bota esoteric order was one of the first to do that. Paul Foster Case was a great believer in that, in colouring black and white pictures or drawings of each of the tarot cards. So this is a great book for people who are interested in those things, and especially if you would like to learn all about the cube of space in regard to Hermetic Kabbalah and Tarot. This is a really great book. So I'm really glad I've got this book for all the reasons that I've mentioned. I will put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.